stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's planning board meeting. Please be aware of the fire exit, which is to your left of this room. In the event of an emergency, please move in a calm and orderly fashion down the stairs, and please do not use the elevator. The meetings are recorded by the secretary for the purpose of a record in minutes, so please identify yourself each time you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. The board will follow the items in the order that they appear on the agenda, extra copies of which are near the door. After the case has been called, the applicant and/or the representative shall come to the podium, identify him or herself, and give his or her address, and then present their case. The planning board members will then have an opportunity to question the applicant. If this case is a public hearing, it will be open for public input, at which time anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding this application will come to the podium, identify themselves along with their address, and direct any questions to the board. Once all public input has been completed, the applicant or site representative will be given the opportunity to respond to any public input. Once all public input has been completed and all questions have been satisfied, the case will be closed to public input, and the board will then move on to a decision. No further input is allowed at this point. Donna, are you introducing tonight's cases before us?
Thank you. PB 1510-1, upon the matter of request by St. Joseph Ukrainian Catholic Church for a revised site plan approval to construct a 6-foot-high chain-link fence on premises 940 East Ridge Road in an R1 and R5 residential district.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is George Hanashowski. I'm the project coordinator for this item.
If you could just give
Are
us a
there any
general
questions?
description of what you're doing.
We would like to put up a fence on property that we acquired as a donation a few years back to, one, to keep the area clear of wind-borne debris, two, to delineate the property line on the north boundary, and three, to better provide security for the neighborhood. One is that many times we have Arundequoit police coming into our parking lot at St. Joseph's, looking across the fence into the what we call Forever Wild area at this time, looking for perfs that have left the Ridge Road area and are hiding in that. Also, at the same time, if they're in the neighborhood north of the property, it's an easy place to hide, and the police have a hard time observing anybody passing through. This would actually provide additional security not only for us, but the neighborhood to the north and to the south, and also provide Arundequoit police with a better ability to monitor the area and apprehend anyone that was doing something illegal.
One question we had at the workshop was, you're proposing fencing on the north and south property lines. Are we to assume that there's a current fence on the west property line?
Yes, there is.
So you'll be making closure with that?
Yes, we will.
Thank you. Any questions from the board with regarding this application? Jay?
No.
Rich?
No.
Ray?
No.
Bernie?
No.
Mary?
No.
Michael?
I do not.
This time I'd like to open it up to public input. Anyone wishing to speak in regards to this application may do so at this time. Come on up to the board, to the podium, and state your name, address.
Hi, I'm Lee Roselli, and I live at 50 Kalena Drive, right behind the church. There's a fence already there. Is this the fence that goes along the back of our property? I'd like to know exactly where it's located that they're proposing to put this fence.
Jay, maybe you could show her.
Picture right here. Here's your, I'm assuming this is your property line here. So this is, the fence is gonna go here, so it's north and south, and then this one. This is the west side where the back is.
The property is just about, let's see, is that the school?
Yes.
Okay, my property is just about here.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
nothing to do really with.
Nothing to do with this fence in here. You're thinking of putting it lengthwise this way?
Yes.
Okay, because there is a fence already
Could
there.
we try to be on microphone, at least one of you,
Why don't you- Yeah.
please?
You wants to be on the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you have any further
I don't see how that's going to curb anything back there because it's all grass back there. There isn't any wooded area unless it's the far side right by the church.
Well, he's doing both the north and the south. You're saying you want the, if they put it on the east, it would enclose that lot to make it no man's land.
The wooded area is all.
Can I help
Yeah, why don't you-
answer the question?
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
You
This
came
is-
to our house when you wanted the
I
school in
know,
there.
yes, okay.
Okay,
This is
this
the-
is where I live, right
Okay.
about here.
And these are the condos here?
The condo, are these the condos
These are
here?
all the condos. So we would like to put a fence on the north boundary and also on the south boundary. This is where the plaza is.
Where
we-
the what
The
is?
plaza,
Oh, on the other side.
this is, you see, this is Ridge Road right here.
Yeah,
So this is the plaza
okay.
next to our property. This is our area that we inherited, actually was donated to us. So we'd like to close in this area to this fence here that
And
exists
you're
now.
not removing the old fence
We're
that's
not
there?
removing the old fence. We're not
Okay.
touching it. We're just
Okay.
butting up against it on both sides. We have a
Okay.
fence all the way here and across here, and also there's a fence here already in existence. And there's a fence across here with a gate for access. So
There is a
actually,
gate there that we're supposed to have a key to that the church will not give us since a new pastor came in. We have in the process, in the original,
Why don't we take any matters with regards to housekeeping
a
the
fence.
Okay,
fence with,
take it, all right, let's make it, okay, but I'm against it anyway. What about that school?
are there any other questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll close public input at this point. Are there any other questions of the applicant from the board? Are we ready to make a motion? Someone would do so?
Is this a?
It's an unlisted action.
Yeah. It is an active, I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, with respect to PB 1510-1, with respect to seeker, I move unlisted action, I move negative declaration.
Do I have a second?
I would second that.
Well, ladies, excuse me, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries with
Mr. Chairman, I'll also move
no
PB
absences.
1510-1. I move approval of the new fencing.
Second.
So that was, I'm sorry, Richie? Second by,
Ray.
all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you for investing in Arundecoit.
PB 1510-2, upon the matter of request by Costage Engineering, acting as agent for Morgan Depot Plaza LLC for preliminary and final site plan approval to construct a 4,367 square foot Panera Bread restaurant with outdoor seating and drive-through and associated site improvements on premises 999 East Ridge Road, the Depot Plaza, in an M manufacturing district.
Good evening. Mike Montalto with Costage Engineering, offices at 217 Lake Avenue, here this evening on behalf of our clients for the redevelopment of a portion of the Depot Plaza for development of a Panera Bread. A little history, I guess, on the project to refresh some memories. I believe you were all primarily involved in about 3 years ago when we started the redevelopment of the Depot Plaza, where the Kmart was redeveloped into Tops. And then about a year and a half after the main renovations and approval for site plan for Tops came the development of the Sonic, which we had listed originally on the future restaurant out parcel, to today, where we're looking to redevelop a portion of the plaza that is currently the M&T Bank for Panera Bread. We also, about a year ago, subdivided the plaza into different tax account numbers, primarily for the purposes of financing. The plaza is still under common ownership, but it was done associated with the mortgages associated with redevelopment of Tops, the development of Sonic, et cetera. So there is an out parcel that's approximately 9/10 of an acre between the fuel. Thank you. Between the Tops fueling area and the Sonic, where M&T Bank currently is at, it's approximately 9/10 of an acre that we're looking to redevelop as a 4,300 square foot Panera restaurant facility. We went to the Zoning Board of Appeals as part of the redevelopment for area variances. When we subdivided the plaza, this was lot 5 of that subdivision. And there was an area variance granted for the amount of impervious surface area that was on the site and the rear setback of where the M&T building was relative to the site, to where the lot lines that were picked for that subdivision. The entire plaza does have a reciprocal access easement that has been in place from the start relative to utilities, parking, and the like. And that was one of the items that was discussed even when we went about the subdivision. So it was pretty much a paper subdivision a year or so ago relative to creating different finance parcels. We are talking about, 9/10 of an acre between Sonic and the Tops fueling station for redevelopment as Panera Bread. The redevelopment of the parcel lends to a change from a variance where we had 89% impervious surface area to where we'll have 79, so that'll bring that into compliance. It does increase the rear setback from the building standpoint. Still have to see whether or not that requires us to go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals should the project move forward. The building was 37 feet from what we're calling the rear lot line. That's been increased to 48.8, but there is also a dumpster enclosure proposed in that area. So from a bulk area requirement standpoint, we're increasing the impervious, increasing the pervious surface area, decreasing with the redevelopment from what we were at before. We are proposing a 4,300 square foot Panera facility that will employ approximately 40 employees. Will operate Monday to Wednesday, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., Thursdays and Saturdays, Thursday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., Sundays, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. We did appear before the town board and did get approval for our use permit for operating a restaurant in a manufacturing district at the October 15th town board hearing. The facility has interior seating for 102 patrons. It's going to have an outdoor seating area for 33 patrons. Parking, we looked at early memos from the planning staff. We were proposing in the site plan that was submitted 54 parking spaces, depending on which portion of the code you review for parking space requirements. If we provide 1 per 100 square feet, we only need 44. If you provide 1 for every 3 seats, including the exterior seating, you only need 45. I believe when we were here under referral from town board on the use, there had been a comment made relative to the 10 parking spaces that were shown adjacent to the drive aisle by the fueling station. We were agreeable to eliminating those parking spaces. We would meet code even with their elimination. So we would be able to provide 44 parking spaces, and which would be compliant on the 1 per 100 square feet or within 1. If you look at even the exterior, that's without sharing parking with the rest of the plaza. We did prepare a trip generation summary and provided it to the town board and town staff and to Monroe County DOT relative to traffic. The Panera Bread facility, Panera does not operate like a typical fast food restaurant. They have due to the higher price point They've had market studies done where they actually generate less. The drive-through in a Panera is more of a convenience than like the other use that we have next to it, where Sonic, where it's actually driving a large portion of their business. Based on the trip ends for it, there would actually be a slight reduction in peak hour traffic on the Panera Bread standpoint than the M&T Bank facility would be. That information has been provided to County DOT. We have not had an opportunity to sit down with them yet to discuss. We've done, I think, 3 traffic studies on this proposal in the past. One when we converted it from Kmart to Tops. We did it again when we did Sonic. We've provided data that looks like the trip gen should be slightly below what traffic is today. The configuration of the site primarily remains as it is today. The curb line and access for the area that's being redeveloped as Panera Bread, the main plaza drive aisles, all remain unchanged. So it's a redevelopment of the area within that to meet Panera Bread's standards. You've got a menu board, a preview board, or ordering all the amenities associated with that type of facility. We are also in receipt of the town engineer's comments, and there's nothing in there that has any cause for us to be concerned over. They're all very technical in nature relative to what how far the lateral is going to be abandoned, making sure the sanitary manhole says town of Irondequoit, those kind of things. And we're confident that should we move forward that we'd be able to address all of theirs. At this point, I guess I'd like to complete my formal presentation and turn it over for any questions the board may have.
So you are willing to remove those 10 parking spots?
Pardon me. Yes, we are.
Okay. Jay, do you have any questions?
What are you going to do with the space that, where the parking spaces were? Is that going to be pervious?
No, this will end up. We'll bring the curb line back up here. You'll have a larger green. We'll actually increase the green space further again.
Right, so you'll increase the pervious.
The pervious surface area would increase. Yep.
And you'll keep all the clearances that you have on the other side of it. You'll keep that drive aisle the same width.
Yeah, because it lines up, from an overall plaza standpoint. So we would provide
the
more.
West side, the
Yeah.
side that you just.
Yep.
The west. That's,
Yep. We would turn around and on the eastern side, where these were shown,
right.
we would turn that into lawn. Push more green space over in here. We may shift the building a little bit off, so that we can get some more green at the building, but not a wholesale, shifting of it, because the drive aisle lines, this curb access
right.
comes in.
Okay. And do you have? Are you going to change your planning schedule because there's going to be additional pervious, or is that just going to be? You're going to change the drawing and get it. We could probably do that subject to the staff approval with respect to that. Is it just going to be? You're going to keep the planning schedule the same, and you're just going to increase the grass area?
We'll shift the landscaping that was here, over a little bit, and then kind of make sure that's appropriate in terms of lawn and plantings.
We can make it a condition that I have a last look as well as staff, if that
Okay.
satisfies everyone.
Yeah. We had some questions at the workshop regarding traffic flow, and I'm fairly comfortable with the answers that I got at that point. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we do appreciate the traffic information. Richard?
Procedurally, we had a chance to see this once before, but obviously this is a much more thorough submission, and I appreciate the depth and the quality of it. Tell me about the monument sign. It says it's non-compliant. Why is it non-compliant, and what are you going to do about that?
Well, the monument sign actually is not going to, when you say not
It
non-compliant.
says monument sign proposed as non-compliant.
We were depicting at one point an individual, the sign package folks had presented a monument sign out front here. That is not going to happen after talking with the owner of the plaza. Panera Bread will be looking to actually put a panel in the tops freestanding, so the sign package, I believe, that's in there,
Yeah.
all the sign drawings, there's that freestanding monument will not be obstructed. That
Good.
would not be in the package.
Okay.
And the location of it, I believe, in there, they added it, it doesn't appear on our site drawings, was that it was, about mid portion of the site in front of the freestanding tops pylon. That won't be occurring.
Okay, and then this would be the
Yes,
pylon?
that's what the owner of the plaza has agreed to with Panera.
Okay. That's all I have.
So does that have to be included as a condition as well?
Should be. Why not? Because it's on the plan.
Anything else, Rich?
No, that's it, thank you.
Ray?
Mike, I'm still struggling personally with the traffic generation. Clearly, we've done a lot of work on that plaza with traffic generation. But I'd like to read your statement from your letter, if I may, just very quickly. You're saying that the Panera Bread facilities do not fit into the traditional restaurant category as defined by the IT Institute of Transportation Engineers. You differ from the traditional QSR or fast food because the price point is higher and all orders are made to order. So you're saying that makes it lower?
Yes.
Lower traffic
Yep.
generation?
Yeah, and we didn't change, we still used, I think if you noticed my calculations, I still used fast food and prorated, based on, they only get approximately 30% of their business from drive-through. So I believe our numbers are still even more conservative. We didn't try to take, a different food category and change it or whatever. We still went with drive-through, for 70% or 30%, and then took high turnover sit-down and used it for, the regular, for the other 70%. So we believe our number is conservative,
And the only reason I bring this up, Mike, is you're saying that everything is truly made to order?
That's what Panera, yeah,
Um,
that's,
There was an old advertising, marketing gimmick. It's called Burger King. Have it your way, make it to order. I mean, that's where I'm struggling with this sentiment.
well,
And,
let me provide.
And the other thing, Mike, if I may, just to jump in,
Yeah.
you also compared it at our workshop that we wouldn't have any more traffic than if we had the bank.
That's correct.
But you're open, a bank is open till maybe
No,
4?
peak hour. We're not talking about you'll have less traffic, total number of cars through the day. We're talking that at
Right,
its
yep.
busiest time, it'll generate less than the bank at its peak hour busy time. Panera hopefully will generate more people through an entire day than a standalone bank does. That's also one of the reasons why we're hoping from a continued viability of the plaza standpoint. That's why we're here about a change in who's using that out parcel, is standalone banks aren't showing as much. If you do recall from the previous applications, though, we did enter into agreements with Monroe County DOT, so there's a vehicle in place for both of the unsignalized intersections that should the traffic ever get generated in volumes high enough from Sonic, Panera, the U of R offices that are, now developed in part of Depot Plaza, as well as Tops and whatever, that County DOT has a mechanism to turn around and say, okay, how can we bring the developer back to the table and enact improvements relative to, how the traffic are. Because we've got a signalized intersection on Ridge Road, 2 unsignalized on Ridge Road, and 2 access points on Carter. So the ability to disperse traffic, is, and, the elephant in the room also is that Ridge Road has been seeing decreases, unfortunately, over the past few years in the amount of traffic volumes that are on it. At its heyday, when all the uses and whatever were being done, we had a couple of other, there was 1 million plus square footage or whatever that was in the area that was also helping drive all that. So we're quite comfortable with that. We're continuing to have dialogue with, county DOT. We're willing to sit at the table with them and town staff and have further discussions if they feel that, studying it is necessary again. If the proposed data on the trip gens being less than the current generator, is not satisfactory to them. So, at the time we made the application, school wasn't in session, doing a traffic count just for the sake of doing a traffic count, didn't seem to make a lot of sense in light of the trip gen, what the trip gen data is, and that, the town engineer has also been involved in looking at, traffic generations for Panera Bread in a different municipality. We're comfortable with, I guess the
So
data is.
to summarize right now, you have the data which shows that the peak traffic is less than
Yes.
anticipated
Yep.
for the M&T Bank. And if there is any detriment to the traffic on Ridge Road, there's a mechanism in place that would enact a study or
Yes.
agreement between the developer and the county.
County DOT actually has intersection agreements for both the unsignalized intersections that were executed by Depot Plaza with the Sonic project to guarantee that there would be a mechanism in place that as the plaza grew, or if traffic generations ever change, that they don't just have something in writing. They've got an easement agreement that allows them to
Any other questions, Ray?
happen.
Nope, that's where I was at.
Bernie?
I just got a general question. When did you plan to start, and when would this be finished?
Spring construction, and then they would be open, they take about 6 months, I think, to truly build out. So, they're hoping to break ground in spring and be done for next fall.
Thank you. That's all.
Mary?
I'm good.
Michael?
I have no question.
Did you review the landscaping at all?
I did not.
At this point, I'd like to open up to public input. Anyone wishing to speak in regards to this application may do so at this time. See a little bit of movement, but no one? I'm going to close the public input portion of this hearing. Are there any other questions from the board? I would like to say we appreciate you providing the data that's been requested. We also appreciate the flexibility with regards to the application for adding green space.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, just so I get everything straight here, the number one is with respect to the conditions, one is agreeing to the town engineer's comments.
I think we don't generally write that into the suggestions because that's incumbent upon any application, but the two things that I have are delete 10 parking stalls on the east parking island and replace with landscaping. Planning board chairman to review final design, and Panera to add sign block to existing pylon, no new pylon to be added.
I'll make the motion for secret, Mr. Chairman. With respect to, do you want to go over the short form or the
Sure.
environmental impact form?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to do that in the first one, but there was nothing. So the short form environmental assessment, the part two, we have, for the 11 items there, we've found no or small impact may occur. Includes the item for conflict to adapted land use, change in the intensity, impair the character, any critical environmental areas obviously are not impacted, and there's no impact on water supplies, gas, water, public, et cetera. And there's no hazard to the environmental. We summarize by saying that the revised site plan to include the construction. Got the wrong one.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Yes.
I have a form for this
Yeah,
application,
Don't think I have that one.
because I have all 10 copies in my possession, so I
Okay.
apologize.
Can I ask
Do you need all 10, or can we see 7 of them?
I have a question for the applicant while you're doing that. 12B says, is the proposed action located in an archaeological sensitive area? And that's checked, yes.
Or part 3, excuse me.
That doesn't apply to
It is? Okay.
What is this, part of the circles and squares map? Or
Yeah, it shows up on the, the new forms, when you put in the address, there's two things there
Oh,
show
right.
up, and I think we went through them even the last time, is there's a couple of environmental, where there was a spill on Carter down by the expressway that's been, the DEC log's been closed and whatever. This, I believe, when we went through it last time, the whole area's already been developed. That's right.
Yep.
So, yep.
And just to add to that, much of the town of Arundequite is identified on that map, and so in areas where previous development's taken place and disturbance has already occurred, the consensus from SHPO is that the likelihood of there being something archaeologically sensitive found years after development has taken place numerous times is very, very unlikely. So they don't consider it a concern.
A fair amount of the entire county, actually, now that they've redone
Right.
that mapping, it all shows up, so.
Mr. Chairman, or Terry, the end of the end of the statement about the 20-gallon diesel fuel spill, it says spill case file closed by, is that NYSDEC?
I apologize. Thank you for that. It's the form starts to cut you off if you go over a certain number of words, so I apologize.
That's impressive that you went over that many words in your review. Obviously, very, very thorough. All right, so what I said before was true until I got to the description in the back. The revised site plan approval for the restaurant facilities in the M Manufacturing District is an unlisted action. The action involves the construction of a small restaurant, 4,357 square feet, with drive-through facilities within an existing paved parking area of a developed commercial plaza which contains no natural resource or habitat area. The site is located along the town's primary commercial corridors on East Ridge Road, and the use is compatible with the character of the surrounding area. Traffic. Based on the trip generation report and supporting documentation provided for this application, the traffic generated by Panera Bread will not substantially increase trip generation or traffic volumes than the bank that is currently located on this site. Historic and archaeological resources. Although the project is located within an area designated as archaeologically sensitive in the New York State Historic Preservation Office, no significant adverse impacts or archaeological resources are anticipated. Since the action is proposed in a developed commercial area where building foundations, utilities, and pavement have been installed, the project will not affect previously undisturbed soils. Informal communication with SHPO disclosed that SHPO does not require an archaeological investigation within an established paved commercial development, except in rare cases, e.g. SHPO record of known Native American village or burial site. Hazardous to environmental resource or human health, no DEC database records of hazardous conditions are associated with the project site. 2 adjoining nearby properties have a database record which have been remediated and closed. 1, the record of disposal of incinerator ash on a property on Carter Street west of the project site has been remediated. 2, record of a 20-gallon diesel fuel spill at a site at the intersection of I-590 and Carter Street. Spill case file closed by New York State DEC.
That, Mr. Chairman, with respect to PB 1510-2, for seeker purposes, I move that this is an unlisted action and negative declaration.
Second, anyone?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bernie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. So we're looking at preliminary and final site plan approval.
I would make a motion, Mr. Chairman, with regard to PB 1510-2, that we grant both preliminary and final site plan approval for the Panera Bread with the 2 conditions that were placed on the record just a few moments ago.
Deleting 10 parking stalls on the east parking island and replacing with landscaping. PB Chairman to review final design. Panera to add sign block to existing pylon. No new pylon to be added.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for investing in Arundequite. Next matter, please.
PB 1510, 3, upon the matter request by U-Haul for revised site plan approval to reuse an existing parcel for retail propane cells, self-storage units, outdoor equipment storage, truck and trailer rental on premises 1106 East Ridge Road in a C Business District.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Todd Schnitzer, President U-Haul Company of Western New York. We're looking to open up a U-Haul storage facility in the current building at 1106 East Ridge Road that was mostly vacant for quite some time, redeveloping the facility into a state-of-the-art storage facility for the area, as well as a small retail space on the rear of the property, and then ability to use existing rental equipment to facilitate customers moving in and out of our storage facility.
Did you bring a site plan with you?
I do have another copy of it, same one.
You maybe just want to put it up on
Sure.
the board so anybody in the audience, if you open that board, there's a strip inside there that you can,
You need 3 hands, though.
it's like a Chinese finger torture though, but trying to get that,
I'll be Vanna. I have no idea how, this is gonna be a test of mine.
I think you slide it up in there and then it'll stay there. If not, you could use 2 thumbtacks and put it on the panel on the right.
Okay. Or perhaps I could just hold it, and I don't mind standing in front of it.
Okay, Vanna, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Karen, you wanna-
It seemed like a good idea.
Thumbtacks don't work there.
It'll be shredded by the time they're done.
Is it just a magnet?
We're either figuring it out or it's broken.
It's a small little site, too.
That's just the name of the building.
Oh, it's just a magnet.
That works much better.
Yay, Donna.
All right.
It should be on already.
So on the facility, obviously, we're utilizing the building here, multi-level storage facility, which is individually alarmed units, controlled access, card swipes, so it's not people just coming in and out whenever they feel like it. We really control who's coming into the building while we're opened. If it's something that someone meets qualifications for an extended access, we still control when they come in, when they go out, limiting hours and access to the facility itself. You've got entryways coming off of Ridge Road here. Storage, the shunting areas for our equipment would be in the rear of the building, allowing customers to come in, return to a small showroom on the north side of the property, returning, and then same thing, dispatching from this area, coming up out the driveway as we pull the equipment up. The facility itself, again, is 3 levels, primarily for storage use.
Talk a little bit about how the main retail location is on the north side rather than the south side.
For this facility, because of the layout of it and how the major parking is, so that it's simpler for customers to park and have more area as a safety standpoint, using more space in the rear with the smaller showroom, it gives us the ability not to have traffic congested up front. Up front, we would limit smaller vehicles of ours, a few for frontline display, and then additional row on the front of the building for storage customers, should they need to go into storage from the front of the building itself. Your main load, unload areas are off the rear of the building with an auxiliary access up front.
Are you proposing any landscaping or lighting improvements?
Lighting is existing on the building already. There is landscape up front. We do have trees in the rear area, as well as replacing an old existing fence that's been deteriorated. That we did reach out to the community members as far as the back properties, let them know, and they seem to be happy with the ability. We were willing to change a fence out for them.
And then maybe just talk a little bit about your facade improvements.
Facade on the front of the building, we've added some display windows up top, repaired the display of the building, which was sagging and really in poor repair for many years, replacing the roof on the facility. Going through will be imaging on the facility that's going to just really promote the business as far as storage, and overall just give a much more aesthetic appeal on Ridge Road coming down the road than the existing building there.
And you're changing some of the facade to the, I don't know, I call it the Harlequin look of that's standard for U-Haul.
It's a diamond pattern like the existing facility down the street. This building here would be an access building of that, where the main rental location is still down the street. This is more so for storage facility for existing customers in the area that do need storage.
And you're putting the mural on the west side?
Yes, on the west side of the building, there was a artistic mural just depicting someone into a storage facility. Just more of an inviting view of showing that the storage is there and you have the ability to rent there.
How is that graphic installed?
That is a large banner which is attached directly to the facade itself. It's leg bolts that go into the building itself.
Questions from the board? Jay?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First off, I think this is kind of a nice reuse of this particular property. It's kind of an oddball shape and size and everything else, so it's kind of nice that we can use it for something that, and you're actually fully utilizing it. The question that I have is regarding the hours of operation and when people are going to be able to get into the facility. Are there, when you say that you have access beyond the hours of operation, are there still going to be hours where no one can get in the facility regardless of what their standing is with you? Or are there some is there some access plans that are 24/7 or?
Some access does allow that. What we have is existing customers coming in is a new move-in until you've been with us and we know who you are, what you're using for. We limit hours to our normal business hours, which are Monday through Saturday, 7 to 7. Friday, 1 extra hour until 8 p.m., and then Sundays, 9 till 5.
Monday through Saturday, 7 to?
7, 1 extra hour on Friday until 8.
Friday is 7 to 8, and then Sunday is?
9 to 5.
And is it possible that we can limit some of the additional hours? I mean, as part of this, would you be amenable to us limiting the additional hours to, something around midnight or whatever? I don't know how the board feels about it. We haven't really talked about that.
It's generally limited because you don't really have very many people to do that. You may have a pharmaceutical rep or someone with climate-controlled storage that may come in where, they may have a trip or something that they're going on to get a box or something like that, but the normal use coming into the building is almost always during business hours. It's an additional charge to try to get into any of our facilities later in the day, which are not really taken too often. It's more so on like an outdoor drive-up where you have contractors that want access at all hours. This is more of really your household movers because it's going to be an interior facility, so it's an extension of home. The only time you generally would have anyone else would possibly be like a pharmaceutical rep, something like that.
So the only one that would have off-hour access is someone that has a long-standing relationship with U-Haul, pays an extra fee, and has security clearance that
Correct.
allows them access.
Right, it's not just come in, have free reign. We're swipe card access. You can't get in unless you're in our system set up for it. It's, if someone doesn't pay their rent, it's automatically locked out. So someone not in good standing does not have access to our building. The common person coming in that's just moving into storage does not have that access. It's after we've agreed that you're someone that we want in the building, that you would have that option to do that as well.
And it's an added fee.
Correct.
And you have cameras all over the place, I'm assuming?
Everywhere.
Yeah, okay. I have one in here. All right, I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Just briefly on the overall application, it talks about outdoor equipment storage. Is that your equipment, U-Haul equipment, or are you proposing to store people's boats, trailers, things like that?
No vehicle storage outside. That is just our rental equipment in its shunting area, waiting for the next customer to take it off the lot.
Okay. The only other question I have is the mural. Is that something that's tried and true and used for advertising? Or is it something you're doing to try to make the building more appealing, in your opinion? And is it something you're wedded to? Is it something you really feel you need?
I think it's used very well all throughout the country that we use it on there. It's really just something that really storage is an extension of your home. We want someone comfortable coming in and giving the home feeling that it really is something that, you know, you're coming in here, it's part of your life, it's still here. You know, we're storing people's worldly possessions. You know, some things that are in there have no value to me, but it means the world to someone else down there. And it's really just to give the peace of mind that this is a facility that you want to be in. It's just more of that customer interaction to show it's really where you want to be.
To follow up on my point, I'm not aware of any other murals on Ridge Road, and if they exist, I can't recall where. It just doesn't seem like something that we've really had in the past. Doesn't mean it may not work in the future, but is it something you feel you really need to have?
I certainly would like to have it on the building. If it's a yes or a no to me on moving forward on the project, I could certainly can make concessions to that. But it's certainly something that, you know, it's well used by our company as far as just trying to extend and really help the business facilitate that it's a family-oriented place and somewhere that is good to store your
And
things.
this is the actual graphics, although it's skewed? I mean, it's just something?
Yes.
All right.
I did submit a straight-on photo of it. I failed to bring another copy of that. I don't care if you have that copy still in the file.
We have that.
We do have it?
I think so. We got it today.
After the planning board, I had brought it in and got it in to show the straight-on view of
It was
it.
in
Yeah.
the packet for the,
Yes.
from, on the desk today.
Why don't I have that?
Oh,
Yeah, I got it. That one? It's like a person standing.
Peter, would you like it?
Oh, we both have.
Wait, no?
Do you have a chain? What, this one?
Well, I got it.
Right, I already looked at it.
no, me neither.
See, I don't even have that. I got this.
Rich, you want mine?
Yeah, if I could.
Right here.
Thank you.
I think it's right there. It looks like it's part of the seeker package, okay.
I don't have that package either. But that's all right. I got another package.
Right here.
It's in the seeker package.
No, I'm fine, good now. I saw it.
You got that?
I have the different secret form. Rich, any other questions of the,
No other questions.
right?
I share Mr. Palux's concerns over the mural, just to be upfront about it. But a question for you. Is there a sign or an anticipated sign to direct people to what I would consider the back of the building, which you're considering the front?
There is the small signage showing the initial image packet that was on there showing it. We've got some similar facilities throughout the country where it's deemed that it's generally not necessary. As we direct our customers where to go, there are signage as far as your equipment return that's directing customers down there, and it's an anticipated direction on where to go on there.
If I could just interrupt and ask one more question. Either of the attorney or the town staff, I mean, this is in essence, a 30 by 32 foot advertisement or you know, billboard sign. The only thing it doesn't have is words. It shows storage area. I mean, is this something that's allowed by town code? Do they have to get a variance for a 30 by 32 foot mural?
I think that we would have to look at that further to determine whether this, right, because it doesn't have a logo or anything indicating a particular brand, it could be interpreted one way, it could be interpreted either way, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It
my
could be
fear is
considered
that-
art. Murals on the side of a building generally could be classified as
I mean,
art.
the flower place has a mural on the side of their building.
Right.
The board for that.
Right.
I'm not sure for variance, but it had to get approval by the planning board to allow it.
So the planning
What's to
board-
prevent a grocery store to put up a 30 by 32 foot mural of groceries?
Well, I think
Wegmans
it's
does it all the time on their windows. They have all environmental graphics on the front of their windows.
Yeah, but those are windows and it's not permanent.
This isn't permanent either. It's a banner, and those are stickers.
It's a banner or is it a painting?
No, it's a banner.
It's a
And it
banner.
needs a variance if it's a banner, because we have certain size limits if it's a banner.
Is it
It's a permanently installed and graphic, I don't know whether you,
is it like, adhered, like adhesive, via adhesive, or is it
It's
hanging?
not glued to the building. It's attached through lag
Stretcher
bolts
frame.
into the building to hold it on there as a permanent part of the building itself.
Okay.
I don't know, I like well, contrary to everyone else, I like the graphics on the side of the building. I think the colors fit in with the rest of the building. It adds some livelihood to the building. I think that environmental graphics are used all over, including the places that I just mentioned, personal designs. Wegmans has it in the front. We've had other applications come before us with different environmental graphics, and if it's a function of approval, then we should make sure that we investigate that, but I'm not averse to it. I think it adds something to the building, and a lot of times people are looking for more embellishments to the facade, and people don't want to do, they want to do less, so I like it. Any more questions? I mean, Ray, I haven't, just kind of digressed, and
I guess then the next question is, Donna, if I understood you correctly, do we have to address this as signage variance or no?
Well, if you consider it a sign, then it would need a variance. If you don't consider it a sign or a banner, then help us out here.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with the sign regulations to know whether or not that the town would,
Oh, it doesn't meet if it's a sign, it's too large. It would
but
need a
whether or not
variance.
it would be considered a sign, I'm not sure
It's,
that
we
would
haven't
require
had
review.
many of these applications. We've only had, like you mentioned, the mural, and it did have to go to the board.
well, what about Wegmans? How do they put all those graphics up on their windows without coming before our board?
You mean
Every one of their windows is embellished
Right.
with you could see through it from the inside, but on the outside, it's a corn and a pea and a carrot, whatever.
I think if it was classified as an oversized sign, I don't think, does the sign code, it would still be a ZBA variance, correct? Or-
Right, we were treating it internally as staff when we reviewed this. We were because it didn't have any commercial message as part of it. It just seemed that it fell more in the lines of art or sort of a facade improvement because it didn't have a logo associated with it. Had it had a logo that would have been more clearly delineated as a sign or as a banner. And so there's I think a little bit of, because I think maybe this falls slightly into a gray area, and it depends on how this board.
I mean, to me, it's an embellishment to the
Determines.
facade. I don't think it's a sign, it's a graphic, how it's permanently installed, whether it's printed on vinyl or not, or painted on the thing, to me, that's kind of,
regardless if it's a sign variance or not, it's still in a commercial area, so this board has to look at the design, and you could decide whether
Right.
it's
So-
not fitting or not, just because you have the right to do a facade review, which you do every time there's,
That's true.
my opinion
No,
is
so-
that this is a planning board issue item, and that we should be reviewing it and approving it tonight.
I guess the other question I would have then is, what is it made of? How long is it anticipated to last? Is it going to fade? I mean, all of those same questions we were talking about a month ago with regard to an awning applies here. I mean, what happens if this gets up and fades in a year and doesn't look good?
My question is, how far up off the ground is this going to be?
I don't have the exact height on that as far as what I have on here. It's large up off onto the second floor, up into the third floor, so it'll be,
Because I just
towards the
thinking
top
of
of the
little
building.
vandalism there.
yeah, nothing down low where someone's going to reach because it is a slope drive coming down to the lower level. To address the issue, if it was something that was faded or didn't seem to look well, it could certainly be replaced. And I think if you drive by the building, you'll see that the improvements we're doing there are to make the building stand out as a top-notch building on the street. I don't want anything that's not going to be top of the line and look great anywhere at any of my facilities itself.
I mean, just to put this in perspective, movie screens are usually 20 feet high and 40 feet wide. So that's about 800 square feet, and this is 900 square feet, so it's gonna be, a big square. That's a lot of square footage. I mean,
It is
it's from probably where Mary's, right where that window is, almost to the end of the,
I mean, you could do more, I would imagine this is printed much like billboards are now, where they're printed on a vinyl graphics with UV, entrained ink, Those things are stretched onto, and they're put up to be somewhat permanent, but if we need more information on the vinyl, on the graphic, then we can request more. I believe we've also put in stipulations in the past about longevity and revisiting, maintenance and other items.
I just don't see a purpose. I don't. Take the other tack, Carrie, as you had said. You're right. It doesn't have anything to do with U-Haul. It's a young lady standing in front of a garage door. In my mind, that's all it is. And I don't understand why we need a young lady standing in front of a garage door on the side of a building in Arundequite on one of our main thoroughfares at that size. If it was an advertisement, I'd look at it a little bit differently. If it's advertising the business, to me, it doesn't. It's not something.
Why don't we move on to other comments from the board? I think what Ray's saying, he wants your logo on it.
No, I'm saying.
I'm kidding. Bernie?
Mr. Chairman, before you forget, there was a letter from the neighbor.
Yeah, I haven't forgotten.
Okay.
So I was going to ask the question about the fence, because you did say you're replacing a fence, correct?
On the rear of the property, yes.
So can we get to the letter then? Because there's a letter we
Sure.
received today. Have you seen this?
I have not. Thank you.
Well, before we get to the letter, we going to do the public input, or?
We haven't finished comments from the board yet.
Okay.
This one with the tie line.
That's the owner of the store.
The reason I'm confused is if you look at the map, it shows a fence. If I'm reading this correct? A link fence.
It's the owner of this, which I think is a couple doors away. 36.
So I didn't understand where the fence was missing.
It's between the two stores.
Oh.
It's in that letter.
Between here?
I think it's on the east side of the building, is it not?
Yeah, because I don't see 1136 as an address on
It's
either
a-
side of the property.
Yeah, it's on the east, it's got to be on the east side of the building,
It's a tile store, and the tile store is right next to it, isn't it?
the tile store.
That says
It is.
1122, 1124 East Ridge Road.
But we have a letter from them, it says
I
1136.
know, the map just says a different address.
That means it's down the street.
No, it's next door to this place.
Todd, is this not in the adjacent building?
I believe the towel warehouse is right next door to us. There's a couple properties in the front and then in the rear.
Right.
The rental store is up front, and then the tile, I think, wraps off the back of that building.
Can I ask a
Your,
question?
your map seems to indicate a fence, but it doesn't say anything about it. Oh, it says chain link fence on the east side.
On the east side of the property, there is a fence line there that the fence had fallen down prior to us purchasing it, as well as some overgrown landscape, trees, weeds, bushes that had gone through there, that all the garbage was cleared out of that area. There's nothing up in the space as of right now because everything was fallen down. So because the garbage was cleared up, I'm guessing they're saying that's blown through. We did talk with the property owner right next door when we did clean all that up, and they seem to be okay with it, so I'm not sure, obviously with this coming in today,
Was
what
your
that's from.
intention to replace that eastern?
The fence could certainly go back up on the side of the building. Nothing's been put up yet because we cleared the area of all the garbage that was grown into it as it is now.
But is your intention to restore that easternmost?
The fence would go back up over there, which is what it shows in the drawing itself.
It does show chain link fence.
Right.
I mean, your intention is to have that back lot enclosed fence,
Yes,
correct?
the fence in question that we were saying originally was to replace one in the rear of the property that's already there, that's still standing, that was falling down. Kind of the same thing where old trees and weeds that have grown into trees from the prior occupants of the building have destroyed the fence, so that was already falling down. This, again, not seeing it to see what the issue was on it, the fence line would go back up on the side of the building there. Again, it was just to clean out all the debris and everything that was in the back of the property.
It's already on the site, on the new site plan.
Right, I see it also, yeah.
That's the only question I had. I'm okay with the mural if you want any comments, but
Sure. Mary?
Well, I'm not. I'm looking at the picture you gave us of this mural, and it sure looks low to the ground, because the ground is sloping.
It's this one, Tom.
Not that one.
Yeah, no, this one, this is the one Mary's
Yeah,
referring
that's
to.
the side shot of it.
This is what I'm talking about. This mural, if you look at it, yes, it's above the windows, but those windows are lower to the ground, and especially with the slope.
Actually, the windows on the ground look like her legs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were looking at.
Yeah, it looks to be probably 5 feet off the ground, but
I have a question.
Yes.
Are murals like this typical of U-Haul? Is it a trademark? Is it recognized as U-Haul? It certainly separates then whether it's a mural or whether it's advertising.
I can't say, it's certainly not trademark that we have that. I mean, a lot of businesses that I've seen have put them up as far as, smaller sizes, but obviously we're using a bigger structure and more so that's creating a larger mural on it. I don't know if that answers your question or if it's,
Well, if it answers the question in a positive manner, then it is a quasi-sign and perhaps needs to be addressed that way by the town.
I think, so there are two issues, and I think this is the point that Donna was making, is regardless of whether or not this is a sign, the board has discretion to say, just under your general site plan review authority, whether or not you think it's appropriate or inappropriate to have it included in the design, because you are allowed to comment and approve, building, design, facade, and other design requirements and aspects of the project. So even if it's not a sign, you can still say whether or not you think it's appropriate that it be included. And then the second issue is if staff goes back and we look and we see whether or not this is actually a sign under the code, it may require either an additional sign permit from this board and or a variance from the ZBA if it exceeds the maximum allowable size. So you don't necessarily need to decide now whether or not it's a sign. If you can say that you think it's inappropriate or appropriate with or without that determination, and then if there's an additional sign permit or permits required, then those will have to be addressed.
the applicant has already said that they're willing to not include the banner or mural if it's a point of contention. So my recommendation is that we get through our comments through the board. After we hear from the public, we could pull the board as to whether we think it's something we want to see or not, and then we'll move on from there.
Well, while he's still allowed to answer. As I look at it on this rendering that you have,
yes.
it is surely low enough to the ground that I haven't walked your building, but the windows that are on that west side look as though I could reach the top of that window from the driveway.
The windows, that would be on from the front for how far back is in the building. I'm going to say it's got to be probably 15 feet off the ground.
Really?
No.
Am I right?
No.
Or is that too low?
Directly underneath
Is that
the
not
mural.
far enough down?
The ones directly underneath the mural.
This is what the concern is that this is.
Unless somebody photoshopped
Yeah,
the
no,
asphalt up.
I'm wrong. I was looking at it as far as you were saying the windows here, which is the second story. That is the bottom of the first story level there.
Yeah, and as I just look at it, and I'm trying to think, I could reach those windows easily.
From looking at it again, yes, I'm certainly incorrect. It is lower, certainly high enough off the ground where you'd have to reach up to get to it, but it is a bit lower than I was looking at on it.
Would you be comfortable compromising the size?
Certainly.
That's easy.
Anything else, Michael?
No, thank you. You talk about trees and things in the back, and but you don't talk water wire. So if you could, and that could be included when he does whatever he has to do.
And on the front page, it shows there's 2 rows of evergreens.
Evergreens, but-
Staggered.
Yes, evergreen staggered.
Are those new or those are existing?
Those are new.
And
We need a specification on what those will be.
do you know what they mean? I mean,
At this time, I'd like you to open up public input. Anyone wishing to speak in regards to this application may do so at this time. Nobody wants to talk about the mural? You sure?
Sounds like it, looks like it's on the trucks.
Seeing none? Close the public input
Thanks.
portion.
Wait, there is
Oh.
somebody, Peter.
Oh, slow to the draw. You missed the gavel, sorry, you can't talk. You gotta go to the mirror, you gotta go to the microphone, you gotta introduce yourself.
Here, here's a
Public
commercial.
hearing is still open.
Yeah, my name is Dan Berkeley, and I own the building across the street, the Rug Market. And you're looking at the mural, but I'm not seeing it, and I'd like to know what it looks like.
Here, Dan.
If you look at this right here, this is, I think 30 wide, 30 wide, 32 high, or 32.
I don't think there's a commercial message on it.
This is the picture of
Right.
it. This is
Here's a logo.
This is how it is depicted on the
It,
wall. So
I think it may be recognizable. People are saying it's on their trucks now, too.
The trucks have pictures all over, like every truck is like, there's a guy on a horse, there's
Oh,
all
got
kinds
it.
of different graphics on it.
this is on the side.
I drive by the house a lot.
Jay has a lot of meetings over there.
Beautiful building.
Dance with the stars, come on.
I guess I don't know how to comment on something like that. It's kind of unusual. There's not any, and there's a lot of graffiti and stuff like that you see painted on sides of building and things like that. It's,
This isn't graffiti.
Yeah.
it's-
And I think
I
that's
guess-
what's gonna draw graffiti.
not knowing what it looked like, I just wanted to see what
Yeah.
it looked like, yeah. Okay.
What's the definition they were looking at? Which one?
Commercial.
Oh, is it under message or commercial?
Peter, is it okay? I don't know if that made it all the way around. Could Donna read the definition of commercial signage
I'm not even seeing it.
for the attorney?
You don't have
The
it.
attorney?
She's got it. It's maybe outdated.
Go ahead and
Sign
read
code,
the
sign code.
definition of commercial.
There's a lot of definitions, so Ashley, I mean, the one on 178, I don't know
Yeah,
if you have the
I don't,
code.
and I don't, I don't know that I have the
Okay.
most recent
Well,
sign code.
It just says what a commercial, under signage for definitions, says commercial message, any sign, wording, logo, or other representation that directly or indirectly names, advertises, or calls attention to a business, product, service, or other commercial activity. But that's all it says. There's not, I couldn't find mural on here, so, but I feel this is kind of a commercial message, which is under a signage definition.
I don't know if we can do this, Mr. Chairman, but I mean, the rest of the application looks fine to me. This is the only thing that's, is there some way we can approve everything with the exception of this and look at that particular portion of it next month when we do a little bit more research on it, or?
Well, you'd want to make a decision as to whether or not, if you don't think that it's appropriate, then you would want to say that now. If you think it's appropriate pending any additional signage approval, then you can say that, but you don't want to say nothing about it, because if staff determines there's no sign approval needed, then there's been no decision one way or another on it. So I would say either that you find it's appropriate pending whatever additional approvals may be needed, or it's not.
You want to poll us, or what?
Were you, yeah, how about, were you in favor of the mural or no?
After all that discussion, I'm fairly ambivalent, to be honest with you. But I don't think it's, see, the thing is that it sounds like it's a big thing, and it is in a room this size, but that wall is huge, and it doesn't look like it's out of scale or out of, something pretty close to that doesn't look like it's out of scale or obtrusive in any way, to me, anyway.
And I would say Michael's point of raising cropping it a little so that it's a little higher off the ground probably would benefit both yourself and, you don't want it too low where somebody could.
Well, but does it have to be scaled then? If it's gonna be 25 feet high, do you scale it the other way as well? Do you actually, is this a standard product that U-Haul has, or is it something that is scaled based on?
I don't think he was prepared to answer as many questions on the mural as that we had.
Not even close. We do multiple different sizes based on size of facility. It's generally
Is that
based on the
mauve
size
or
of it.
burnt orange? I don't know.
Sierra Sunset is the actual
Sierra
color.
Sunset. In that case,
I mean, I would say that if we chose to approve it, that we would ask the applicant to provide some warranty or other specifications that could be reviewed but
Again, I don't know if so this is 30 by 32. If we want to go further, if we want to go higher up, that means it's not going to be 30 or 32. I assume it's going to stay in the same, dimensionally, it's going to stay, it's going to be ratioed. Is that correct?
I would think so. So it's proportionate as you look at it.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so it stays the same, 20 by 20.
And then, so do you,
what size was it?
30 by
32.
32.
30 wide, 32 high?
I don't know.
You had that,
It's
it was on that piece, it
Yeah, it should.
was on that piece of paper that I don't have.
The other
It
piece
says
of paper.
30 by 32 feet, but it doesn't say which is which.
The other one.
Your height is,
I don't have it.
it's going to be 30 wide by 32 high.
Yeah.
30 wide, but
Doesn't say high?
Doesn't say.
It just says 30 by 32, so my assumption is 30.
32 high.
So we could make a size stipulation, I suppose. Your ambivalence is moving towards
Well, if
yes or no?
My ambivalence is towards a yes if the height is decreased from 32 to 25, say, because then that'll get it further up off the ground, and then you just ratio it that way. That'll get it up beyond where it can be met within
So it's 30 by 32. So we're proportionally saying, where's my calculator?
Todd, when, if I were in the Home Depot, not Home Depot, what's that place next to you? What's that plaza?
You've got Harbor Freight in the plaza next to us.
That's the one. If I were in that plaza, is there not a barrier between the two?
Yeah.
That's a concrete wall?
There's not a full wall. They have parking blocks that are in between the two properties themselves.
Okay, but there's no height to it at all?
No, none.
So it'd be about-
I'd like to see the sign smaller, maybe even,
80% of the size is 24 feet by 25 feet, 8 inches.
do you know how high the building is?
I do not.
If it's a three-story, do we typically have a 30-foot building?
It's not the parking is full, engaged as part of the building facade there.
No, I'm talking along the side where the mural is going to go.
It shows the
That's a
lower level.
three-footer.
What?
The lower level is exposed, so it's actually.
It shows,
3 stories.
Yeah, it shows 3 stories down by the man door
Down
down
by-
here.
down by
But
the-
there's the parking grade up against the floor.
but
I mean, generally, the head height of a window is 7 feet above finished floor, 6'8" to 7 feet. That window head lines up with the door below, which is a commercial door, which is 7 feet. So the slope of the asphalt is going above the floor level below. I mean, I would say that that's about 5 feet off the ground. If we go to
Excuse-
80% of the size of the sign, it's 24 by 25 foot 8. If they mount it to the same height, that should raise that by almost 7 feet from the height that it was before. If you bring it down a little bit, it's still going to be, I would say there's 5 feet of exposure there now. If we're raising it 7 feet, you have up to 12 feet with which to work with there.
That sounds.
I can certainly do that.
And I was just going to point out that SP1 had the max building height measurements included. I don't know if that was helpful and when you were looking at it. I'm not sure if it provides a measurement at the location that we're talking about, though.
No, I'm sure it's probably the average or. So Jay, an 80% band, or mural you would approve?
Yeah, that'll get it over 10 feet above the ground, and that's going to be much less likely to be vandalized.
Rich, we are now discussing an 80% size mural.
I appreciate the applicant's desire to improve the appearance of the building, but I look at it as nothing but advertising, and I think we're going down a slippery slope, allowing a mural of any size. So I'm opposed to it completely.
I am absolutely opposed to it completely. Again, slippery slope, a nice term. I think we're setting a precedent. It doesn't need to be set. It has no, in my mind at least, it's a sign, but I don't understand the value.
Well, just remember, we have set a precedent by approving personal designs and other signs, murals in the past. But that's fine. Bernie, 80% sign mural?
I was okay with the 100%, so I'm okay with the 80%. I just want to, I just want to make one stipulation. We didn't talk about, can we put something in regarding the maintenance? So if it gets ripped or something like that, they have to repair it, that type of stuff.
Isn't there a general ordinance that relates to property maintenance that by putting the stipulation just makes it more difficult to?
There is, and then by virtue of it being approved as part of site plan, if the property comes out of conformance with site plan, this feature being one of them, they could be cited in the future by code enforcement through site plan.
Mary?
I'm opposed to it.
Okay. Michael?
I don't know. Honestly, don't. I'm torn between the fact that I think it's symbolic of U-Haul. You've told us that it's that kind of thing, and the subtlety of it is wonderful. But I don't want to get into a corner to say that this is a sign that depicts your business specifically, and we're okaying it when we've not done it elsewhere. That's, maybe I just don't understand.
I mean, any murals depicting the business, personal designs or Wegmans is, they have fruit and vegetables, personal designs as flowers. I mean, that's the purpose of, I mean, look at all the telephone boxes and things we painted. I mean, yes or no?
Yes,
I would say yes at 80%.
I got
also.
forced into that.
You got forced into yes or no, not yes.
I don't know if it matters, but if you look at the U-Haul trucks these days, they're doing murals on the trucks. I think it looks much better. But I'm just mentioning.
So just to whether or not this is a sign, it's not necessarily, so the code does have the definition of that it's anything, symbol, writing, so the graphic itself can be a sign, but it has to announce it has to either advertise, announce the purpose, or identify the purpose of a person or entity. I don't think that a picture of an individual necessarily announces the purpose of the business or communicates information. I don't know that it's doing that. I would say that the issue would hinge on whether or not it's advertising, and I think that relates to how identifiable, maybe not this particular image is, but these types of images, if they're on the trucks, whether or not it's this particular image that's on the trucks or other ones that are like it, where people would see it and say, that's a U-Haul image. If the town does determine that it is advertising because it's some sort of recognizable graphic that people would correlate with U-Haul, then it probably is a sign, so it would be subject to the sign requirements.
So is there a further step that there's going to be some sort of legal review as to whether the mural graphic is a sign and requires any further permitting?
So, yeah, that would be a staff determination. So there may be, it sounds like if this particular sign is advertising U-Haul, that's the question, then it would be a sign under the code and would require, I believe, a sign permit from this board. And if it exceeds the dimensional requirements, it would also require a variance.
But a simple test would be if somebody has a passport here, to go online and see if U-Haul has that in some of its graphics.
I already did a search and looked up U-Haul graphics on murals on buildings, and there's a huge variety of imagery that shows up, some of it having nothing to do. There's a picture of a boxer on the back of one of their buildings somewhere. There's a picture of a mural that looks like some animal on the side of the U-Haul building. So I'm not sure that this particular image has been identified as the company image. In other words, if I didn't see it on any other.
And I
my
think
quick
that's
2-second search.
That's sort of a factual determination. I think that it may not have to be necessarily this image, but if it's the type of image that someone would look at it and say, hey, that's one of those U-Haul images, like it's obvious that the type and design is part of sort of their series, then that would probably be enough.
So what I have right now is there are 4 members of the board that have approved 80% of the size proposed, maximum 24 feet by 25 feet 8 inches. And then I said further staff review as to whether mural is a sign and whether further approval is required will need to occur.
But that would be the zoning board would.
It would be this board would need to issue a sign permit because the planning board has to issue separate sign permits in addition to your site plan approval function.
I'm saying that we are approving it, and if any other approval is necessary.
Well, that's a separate permit. So if you want to, in addition to the site plan approval, issue a sign permit, then that's the approval for a sign. It's not just approved through the site plan function.
But all those other signs are part of the application that says U-Haul and all that is part of our application.
The town sign code now there's a sign permit that the planning board issues, right? For the types of signs, depending on the type of sign.
Generally speaking, the sign permit is issued by the building department. The signage would be approved as part of the site plan. In other
Okay.
words, so once the project receives site plan approval, if there's sign permits that are needed, that's handled at the construction and development stage, a building permit.
Okay, so under the tables where it says S, allowed with sign permit only, you're saying that's an administrative permit, not a planning board permit?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you look at the sheet, it does say the planning board, there's two tables. One says you have to get reviewed by the board.
Okay.
And in this case, if it is a sign, it will also need to go to the zoning board. If
Right.
it's decided it's a commercial sign. So you did your part, and it would have to go to zoning board if it's determined it's, like Ashley described, a series of U-Haul advertisement.
Okay.
Then it would need it.
So what I have is further staff review is required as to whether mural is a sign and whether further separate approval is required by the zoning board of appeals.
Did you want to add wording about the fences and
I added fencing will be installed on east and west property line.
identification of the plants?
Oh, yeah.
That's on the site plan already, right?
No, I think it just indicates they're plants. I don't think it says what they are.
Says a chain link.
It looks like a chain link fence along the sides.
It is shown on the plans. I don't even actually know. It doesn't say new fence. It says chain link fence.
Okay. Carrie, I had one more question. I don't see it on the plans here, but what would, if this were a sign, what's the square footage of allowable signage on this?
The total building can have 350 square feet, and no side could be more than 20%. So this is, between the front and the side, this would need a variance. Yep.
Thank you. This is still 600 square feet.
All right, so we're looking for seeker approval.
It's unlisted,
Correct.
and we have a sheet filled.
Yes,
out.
I will review that. So we've gone through the Part 2 environment impact assessment. We found no or small impact for all of the items, the 11 items that we talked about for the last application. The revised site plan to reuse the existing commercial building and parking lot for retail propane sales, indoor self-storage and outdoor storage of rental equipment and vehicles. The project is located on a previously developed site, and there is no significant changes with the proposed use that would adversely impact traffic, environmental conditions, or community character.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to PB 1510-3 for seeker, this is an unlisted action. I move negative declaration.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. So we're looking for
Do you want to make a
Revise.
motion, Mr. Chairman? Because you have the conditions there.
Yeah, I'll make a motion in the matter of PB 1510-3 upon the matter request of U-Haul for revised site plan approval to reuse the existing parcel for retail propane sales, self-storage, outdoor equipment storage, and truck and trailer rental on the premises at 1106 East Ridge Road in the C Commercial District. The conditions that
C
fencing,
business, yeah.
What?
C Business District, C Commercial.
oh, C Business District, sorry. Fencing will be installed on the east and west property lines as per the plan. The mural to be allowed at 80% of the size proposed, maximum 24 feet by 25 feet 8 inches. Further staff review as to whether mural is a sign and whether further separate approval is required by ZBA is to occur.
And, Mr. Chairman, they also said that they were going to put new fencing along the south property line as well, right?
South would be Ridge Road.
North side.
The other south. The north.
I'm adding north, east, and west property. And the site plan requires landscape plan for approval by the planning board chair and staff.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
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 Mary, I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-3,
No, no,
4 to
can't be
3.
7 to
4
3.
4-3.
The calculator.
Thank you for investing in Arundel.
Thank you.
Bring all my vegetables down now.
When we get to theirs, we'll just cruise right through it.
Don, if you'd introduce the next matter before us?
PB 1510-4, upon the matter of request by Bill Grays, Inc. for revised site plan approval and floodplain environmental protection overlay district EPOD permit to construct a approximately 2,206 square foot addition with additional parking on premises 4870 and 4880 Culver Road and tax parcel 062.16-1-4 in a C business district. What's that C business down there?
Bless you.
Bless you.
Good evening. I'm Eric Schaff, Marathon Engineering, 39 Cascade Drive, Rochester, New York. With me here tonight to answer any questions I don't have the answers to is Dan Gray, owner of Bill Gray's, Inc. We're here tonight requesting permission. We're proposing a 2,206 plus or minus square foot addition on the south side of an existing restaurant down in the Seabreeze area. This addition will house a full-service bar, tap room, and party room. 48 additional parking spaces will be provided by expanding the parking facility to the east onto the former Vic and Herb's property, which is now owned by Bill Gray's. In November 2002, Bill Gray's was granted a variance to have 12 fewer parking spaces than required. The expanded Bill Gray's will have a total of 484 indoor and outdoor seats. Town code allows up to 20 outdoor seats to be provided without requiring additional parking spaces. At one space for every 3 seats, 464 seats equates to 155 spaces, which is reduced to 143 for the enlarged building based on the 2002 variance. The proposed 156 spaces, however, exceeds the required number, so although that variance is still in place, it is not required for this proposal. We are reducing the total impervious area, approximately 6,000 square feet of green space will be added, as well as we're adding an on-site stormwater management facility. Stormwater from the area of the parking expansion will be directed to the stormwater management facility and ultimately conveyed to the existing sewer system. Project should improve the existing situation for storm drainage. However, as this property is in the flood zone, ponding may very well occur as a result of significant storm events. Creation of the stormwater management facility allows us to compensate for the floodplain volume loss due to the building addition. As a matter of fact, when we do the calculations, taking into account the removal of the existing Vic and Herb's, the creation of the stormwater management facility, and subtracting out the additional building onto Bill Gray's, we're adding roughly 5,000 cubic feet of additional floodplain storage volume. As I mentioned, this property is in the flood zone, and therefore it's subject to Chapter 136 of the Town Code to flood damage prevention. That chapter requires substantially improved non-residential properties to comply with the requirement that the building be at least 2 feet above base flood elevation. The chapter also defines substantial improvement as a project that costs more than 50% of the market value of the existing structure. I've been assured by the owner this project does not approach that threshold, and he couldn't afford to do it. In terms of the curb cuts, we discussed those at the workshop. I am pleased to announce tonight, you may have seen it on the plans that were provided, we are closing those curb cuts. We are not creating any additional curb cuts. We're actually closing those two, and they will look just like
the rest of the curbs along the way. We are intending, yay. That seemed to be the one issue. We can address it, we did. For the record, we are intending to combine the existing parcels into one parcel, so the building addition will not go across that interior lot line, if you will. So we will be filing that, and I've been told that that will be an administrative lot combination.
So that change isn't gonna have to come back in front of us then?
Subdivision?
It's not really a subdivision.
Re-subdivision.
It's a lot combination and
Right.
should be administrative.
Yes.
Correct.
We, for the record, we were in receipt of the town engineer comments, and we provided a response back. We complied with everyone that they asked for. Except for, we're not going to build above the base flood elevation, as I explained.
Right.
Be happy
Questions,
to
Jay?
answer any questions.
I'm all set, thank you.
Rich?
None.
Ray?
None.
Any murals?
We had talked about murals, perhaps a projection spotlight with the hamburger logo off the, all those are off, never mind.
I apologize that we take our job seriously and we actually care what the town looks at.
It wasn't meant as any personal
Well,
affront.
it's about the third time you've cracked a joke about it, and some of us actually care about what we're doing, and we don't think it's funny to, the fact that we disagree, but we don't have to make jokes about it.
I agree. Sorry for any offense. Bernie?
No question.
No questions.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do appreciate your diligent response to the engineer's comments and appreciate your response to the input by the board. This time, I'd like to open it up to members of the audience wishing to speak in regards to this. Anyone wanting to provide input at this time can do so.
My name is Lynn Ann Conroy, and I reside at 4883 Culver Road, directly across from the old Vic and Irvs. Just a couple of questions. So my understanding is that the curb cuts are going from that location? Correct. Okay. And then what's your plan on lighting?
Generally, we try to, go ahead, answer them now.
Your choice, Mr. Chairman. I can answer or.
Go ahead
wait
and answer them now.
We will be adding additional site lighting in the parking area that is created where the old Vic and Herbs was. It will be the same style as that in the existing Bill Gray's. The intent, again, is to make this a more or less seamless integration and appear as one property.
Okay, so with the lighting, I'm just, concerned about the light spillage over to our homes that are there. So it looks like, he said he's going down lighting, so hopefully it won't be shining in our windows in the second story. That's just a concern. Thank you.
Yeah, she's up.
My name is Ben Muckantilla. I'm Lynn and Tom's neighbour. We live directly across from Vic and Irvs. Okay. 4879 Culver Road. Yeah. All I can say is Bill Gray's have always run first-class business. We're delighted to see the old building gone. And brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in regards to this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public input portion. Any other questions or concerns to the applicant? Seeing none, we're ready for motions as it relates to seeker. So right now, we've got the short form environmental assessment in front of us. The part 2 indicates no or small impact for the 11 items contained therein. The determination of significance is summated by the revised site plan and floodplain EPOD permit to construct a 2,206 square foot addition on the existing Bill Gray's building and add an additional parking on site is an unlisted action. The site comprised of two parcels that would be re-subdivided into one is previously disturbed and has been developed for decades. This proposed action does not present any significant adverse impacts. The following issues represent the key areas of possible concern at this location. Traffic. The proposed design includes the closure of the existing curb cuts on the former Vic and Irv's portion of the parcel. The reconfigured on-site parking can adequately accommodate potential demand. The addition to Bill Gray's is not expected to increase traffic demand to the site, especially since another building, food retail, is no longer located at this location. Floodplain. The proposed building addition will be at the same elevation as the existing building. The site design will not create a negative impact on the floodway or increase flood heights. The proposed design materials and practices will minimize potential flood hazard and are designed to enhance existing conditions at the site. Community character. The proposed addition is minimal in size and is compatible with the existing footprint. The proposed site improvements are in keeping with the surrounding area and the vision and goals of the comprehensive master plan.
If there's no discussion, I'll make a motion that, under seeker, that this be declared an unlisted action with a negative declaration.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Seeing none, motion carries.
I'd make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may.
I would like to move approval of PB 1510-4 upon the matter of request by Bill Gray's Inc. for revised site plan approval and floodplain environmental protection overlay district permit to construct a plus or minus 2,206 square foot addition with additional parking on premises 4870 and 4880 Culver Road and tax parcel 062.16-1-4 in a C business district.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you for investing in Arundecoit.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
PB 1507-1. Upon the matter of request by Woods, Ovid, and Gilman, acting as agent for Alfred G. Gilbert, to appeal the determination to the town's planning and zoning department regarding the boundary of a woodlot environmental protection overlay district permit, EPOD, on premises 1027 Thomas Avenue in an RH River Harbor district.
Good evening. My name is Warren Rosenbaum. I'm a member of the firm of Woods, Oviatt, Gilman. We are the attorneys for the applicant, Albert Gilbert, with regard to this matter. I have prepared an outline of what I propose to present to the board this evening, and with the chairman's permission, I'd like to just pass around the outline, if that's okay?
Sure.
He's the chairman.
Okay.
It's okay with me, but
Okay.
he's the chairman, so.
I think he just said okay. While that's being passed around, this is an application pursuant to Section 23544 of the Town of Arundecoit Town Code. It's an appeal from a determination of the Town Department of Planning and Zoning regarding the boundaries of an EPOD 3 woodlot protection district that purportedly encompasses the applicant's property. I'd like to point out what this application is not about. This application is not about whether or not the applicant knew or should have known that this was a purported woodlot EPOD protection district. This is not about what the applicant did in terms of cutting trees down, and nor is it have anything to do with the current application that's also pending before the board with regard to the Lighthouse Point property site plan
Excuse
approval.
me. There's no motion, there's nothing before the board regarding that
That's right.
particular plan.
Oh, is that right?
So there's nothing here, so that, we don't even,
Okay.
all there's been is a few reviews, but
Very well, very
there's
well.
nothing before the board.
Just to
regarding
clarify, this has nothing to do with Lighthouse Point or their application.
that. We don't have an application for that.
Very well, thank you very much. We did submit a number of matters, a number of documents to the board on a couple of different occasions. I'd just like to recite them for the record. There's a letter from McMahon LaRue Associates dated April 17, 2015. There's an application form on 4 pages. There's a report of Heinrich Fischer, a registered landscape architect. There's field notes of Eric Matsky, a certified New York arborist. There's a parcel boundary and topographic map dated December 2014 by McMahon LaRue Associates, showing, among other things, the boundary of the EPOD 3 district in question and the areas where the trees were located, and containing calculations of the woodlot EPOD that encompass this area, both before and after the taking by the DOT for the construction of the O'Rourke Bridge. There is a letter from a gentleman by the name of Kevin Barker. There's a letter from my colleague at Woods Oviatt Gilman, Ruben Ortenberg, who was unable to be here this evening, dated June 25, 2015, with attached exhibits. There's an affidavit of Eric Matsky, sworn to October 19, 2015, with attached exhibits. There's an affidavit of Heinrich Fischer, sworn to October 19, 2015, with attached exhibits. There's portions of a Phase 3 environmental report of the property in question prepared by CDM Smith, dated June 10, 2013, along with reference maps showing locations of test pits dug on the property and summarizing the history of this property as a former landfill and refuse dump. And there's a letter from me to the Planning Board dated October 20, 2015, transmitting for filing various items. I'd like to summarize, if I may, the reasons why the area in question could not have been part of an EPOD district, EPOD 3 district, at the time that the applicant cut the trees down in question. And we believe that's the issue before the board. The starting point is looking at the town EPOD 3 district map. As the map itself makes clear, it is, and I'll quote, "to be used for reference purposes only and shall not be used to delineate the specific or exact boundaries of various overlay districts." This is based upon the code itself, section 23543, that says field investigations and/or environmental analyses may be required in order to determine whether or not a specific property is included in an overlay district. And this is echoed in the Monroe County Environmental Management Council's Atlas Users Manual from 1982. The county has cautioned municipalities against basing their establishment of overlay districts on the county atlas maps, which are in turn based on aerial photos. Specific as to woodlot overlays, the county cautions that, and this is from the atlas, quote, the parcel maps were used as the base maps for these overlays. A preliminary draft of each woodlot overlay was prepared through an interpretation of aerial photographs by county planning department staff. In our view, the field investigations would have been particularly appropriate for the establishment or in the inclusion of the site in question in the EPOD 3 district, as the code has several technical requirements in order to impose EPOD 3 restrictions on any particular property in the town. And I'm just going to talk about the definitions and restrictions and why we believe that this particular property could not have met, or this particular area which encompasses the applicant's property could not have been considered in an EPOD 3 district. First of all, it has to be areas of the town of 5 or more acres, and that's under section 235-53B. We know that for approximately 14 years before the trees in questions were even cut, the area was less than 5 acres due to the eminent domain taking by the DOT for the O'Rourke Bridge, over which neither the town nor the landowner had any control. Even assuming that the 5-acre requirement is met, which we don't believe it can possibly be, based upon the map prepared by McMahon LaRue, which is up here on the board, which sets the boundaries, it shows you the boundaries of the alleged EPOD 3 district encompassing this property.
You're going to talk to the map, there you go.
It shows the boundaries of the alleged EPOD 3 district as it encompassed the property both before and after the taking for the O'Rourke Bridge, and it shows that per the town's own map, before the taking it was 6.6 acres, and after the removal, or after the town, the bridge was placed, we were left with 2.3 acres. So in our view, it could not possibly have been included as part of the EPOD 3 district at the time the trees were taken down. There are further requirements that the town itself imposes in order to qualify for EPOD 3 district protection. And that is how the definition of tree communities are laid out in the code. The tree communities are defined by A, the type of tree species that would qualify for woodlot protection, B, the origin of those trees, and C, the per acre basal area coverage of such qualifying trees. First of all, they must have been established, and this is quoting from the town code, within 10 to 20 years after cultivation and maintenance of land ceases, and include pioneer communities of defined tree species. There has been no cultivation of this land, and I don't mean to be facetious, at least since the Native Americans might have inhabited this area. The CDM report, which we provided pertinent portions of to the board, establishes that this area, which includes applicant's land, was historically a landfill, a refuse dump. It contains fill material, solid waste, and construction and demolition debris. The board doesn't need to take my word for this, although I've seen the property, but the photographs demonstrate, and I'll hand this up to the board, photographs demonstrate that there's actually demolition and construction debris embedded in the roots of the trees, some of which were taken down. And that could not possibly have been embedded in the roots of the trees unless the trees grew up over the landfill site. I just want to hand this to the board, and they can decide whether to accept these photographs or not, but I'm handing them to the board.
Do you want to see these or not?
Sure.
You'll notice that that under the CDM report, the test borings were taken of the land in question, and they demonstrate the levels of various contaminants. There is no evidence whatsoever that this land was ever under cultivation or that pioneer communities of trees existed prior to the time that it may have been cleaned and grubbed for use as a dump site. The photos show that scrap metal, demolition debris, and other wastes are embedded in the roots of some of the trees that were cut down. Another requirement is the limited species of trees that qualify for protection. Here, based on the expert affidavit, which is premised on the actual field observations and measurements by a certified New York arborist, we know that of the trees that were cut down, only about 9 to 13 trees would have qualified for the definition set forth in the code. Even the standing trees include only about, by my count, based on the expert's affidavit, only about 14 qualified trees by species. The total trees cut down were somewhere between 150 and 200. All others were either poplar, what some people call cottonwood, or box elders, neither of which qualify for protection under the definition of the code. All these other standing trees were cottonwood or poplar box elder. In sum, a very small portion of the trees in the area were qualifying by species type. Another requirement is the basal area requirements. According to Mr. Matsky's affidavit, and I think common sense, we must have a per acre average basal area of qualifying trees species of 30 square feet as calculated using what's called a 10-factor prism. I had to go on the internet to find out what a 10-factor prism was, but apparently arborists know what it is. The affidavit opinion states that based on the number of qualifying trees, this standard could not possibly have been met for this area. We have also made a number of FOIL requests, both to the town, and I want to thank the town administrator for being so cooperative in producing documents, and also the County of Monroe. And we have been unable to find any information that any field measurements were ever made prior to the inclusion of this property in the EPOD 3 district. That's not a criticism, that's just an observation. And The burden is not on the property owner, in our view, to establish that his land is or is not in an EPOD 3 district. In sum, none of the criteria for designation of the area in question as being in an EPOD district could have been satisfied. From all that appears, the town accepted the county atlas maps based on the aerial photography and included them as part of the EPOD overlay district. From that, it appears that the town has concluded preliminarily that the EPOD 3 is proper and seems to be putting the burden on the landowner, which is not appropriate. We are respectfully requesting that the board grant the applicant's appeal and find that the boundaries of the EPOD 3 overlay district do not include the area that encompasses the applicant's land. That is my presentation. There's one other item that I had here. There's an additional letter that apparently was submitted to the board. I just received it this morning from Knopf Shaw, dated October 26, 2015. And I also was able to obtain some additional portions of the CDM Phase 2 report, portions of which I've already submitted to the board. And the portions that I have here that we have not yet submitted, of the same report though, deal with the on-site lithology of the soils. And it does tie it into the various site borings, which are shown on the site boring map, which I've already submitted to the board. And it shows very clearly that in the area in question, digging down from 3 to 5 feet, the drill encountered waste material in these areas. And it defines waste material to include glass, plastic, paper, general trash, and also fill material, which includes crushed rock, brick, and wood debris. In our view, nobody's at fault here. It's just a matter of proper interpretation. We're asking the board to interpret based on the facts, to interpret the EPOD 3 district map of the town to not include the applicant's property. Thank you.
Maybe Bob, at this point, you'd like to make a comment?
Sure. I know that the town staff has engaged with, town staff is engaged with the applicant's attorney and counsel with regard to several of these points. I think for the first time, we've really talked about kind of 3 main areas, one being kind of the acreage of this EPOD. The acreage of this EPOD is 6.6 acres. During the course of this EPOD's, I guess I'll call it life, when Monroe County Environmental Management Council, when they kind of gave the town the maps, those maps were became the official town maps, field verified by, I think, the town conservation boards as part of the mapping and part of the atlas's kind of information. The O'Rourke Bridge came in, and that EPOD was modified, right? So New York State DOT came in and cut down a bunch of those trees to place the bridge. Now, we didn't change the maps when that happened, just like we didn't change the maps when Newport came in, and that project was developed with EPOD regulations, but those maps remained. So the maps in town remain the same even when and after kind of a project comes through. So I know that, there might be only 2.3 acres of woods on this applicant's parcel, but we're not remapping the town. If we did, we might remap it, and there might be many more acres to the south, down the CSX property there. So mapping and kind of the size of that EPOD was just one, facet of this conversation. Another, I think, is the type of trees, the poplar or box elder. If you look at kind of our town code, it gives kind of generic types of trees. It doesn't list every single maple tree. It just says maple. It doesn't say red maple, sugar maple, silver maple, mountain maple. It just says maple trees. And in this case, it just says willow trees. And a quick Google search would tell you that, poplar's a species of willow tree. They have the same family name, so the same type of plant, tree, I should say. And we do understand that this, property was part of, a fill site in the past, with C&D material being disposed of at this location, and that this property is a brownfield site. It doesn't appear that it was ever cultivated in the sense of, planting corn, but the town code also says that, it's cultivation and maintenance. So maintenance, mowing, keeping it free and clear of trees. And so at some time in the past, that stopped happening, right? So trees grew, the pioneer box elders and other trees began to grow on this property, and at one time it was mapped on the official town maps that it was an EPOD. Prior use really doesn't have a whole bunch of consideration when it comes down to it's mapped as an EPOD.
So it was a landfill, and trees started growing, and it got mapped as an EPOD, and that EPOD was 6.4 acres at some point before the O'Rourke Bridge?
6.6, correct.
So once the O'Rourke Bridge came, it took a portion of that EPOD,
EPOD boundary is still intact. The EPOD boundary was never changed.
So, and it goes through the bridge now, or over the,
That's correct.
the bridge is in the EPOD?
That is correct.
So the remainder of the EPOD is the land that's encompassed on Gilbert's property?
And others.
It's not just
The remainder of the
Gilbert's
trees
property.
in the EPOD are those that are,
Yeah,
in the
they
Gilbert
encompass
property.
many smaller properties to the south, and off of some properties off of Beacon View as well.
anything else from staff? It's fine if you don't.
I can address staff if the chairman wants me now, or I can wait.
I guess I would like to allow the public to have
Sure.
input, and then you could summarize all the input from
That's perfectly fine. Thank you
questions
very
and
much.
comments that might come up from the public.
Thank you very much. I do have these additional portions of the CDM map, which do talk about the soil borings and actually have the boring results.
Well, I think we know that it was a fill
Okay.
site, and it's a brownfield.
That's fine.
That's,
So if the board is satisfied generally with that, then I don't need to submit this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have a CDM report in here. But at this point, I'd like to open it up to public input. Anyone wishing to speak in regards to this application may do so at this time.
Good evening. My name is Joanne Mudge. I reside at 80 Beacon View Court. And looking at this charter map, yes, my house backs up and is part of is included in the EPOD, so it makes sense that when I heard it didn't meet the 5 acres that Gilbert claimed, it's like it just was not logical. It is 6.6 and it involves many of my neighbors here tonight, their property as well. I'm glad to hear from the town. We wrote this earlier today, and my statement will reflect what the town staff has said too, partially. The area in question was declared an EPOD in the mid-'80s. In that time, it defies believability that the owners did not understand this over a period of 30 years. I have lived in that neighborhood, Beacon View and Smuggler's Lane, since 1980. The time to appeal the EPOD designation should have passed long ago. I am angered at the loss of nearly 50% of the trees within the EPOD's forest area. The pictures you have, which I believe you have them, it's this one?
Right.
All right, good. Show the damage as it looked at the time of destruction. Unfortunately, it looks pretty much the same now. The large piles of downed trees, debris are still where they fell. Also lately, wrecked and abandoned boats have been shoved in among the fallen timber and left to rot. Though the owner was found at fault, fined, and given a detailed land restoration plan by the town of Arundecoit, little to nothing has been done. And the last I had heard, the minimum fine was not even paid. It is evident to me that the tree cutting incident was merely an attempt to facilitate a land sale. What has changed other than the owner's desire to receive an unencumbered major payday? To remove the EPOD designation now would be wrong and rewarding bad behavior. Arundecoit needs to continue the protection of our scarce riverfront woodlot. In conclusion, I trust and hope that the board will deny this appeal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dorothy Broach. I live at 70 Beacon View Court. If you look at the Woodlands EPOD map that is posted on the town website, it appears that the established EPOD consists of more than Mr. Gilbert's parcel. The map shows that the established EPOD includes portions of several of the properties on Beacon View Court, including mine, the CSX property, and the majority of the properties on the west side of Thomas Avenue, north of the railroad. So by definition, an EPOD is not restricted to one owner, but can cross many property lines. Is this correct? The established EPOD consists now of 6.6 acres. So wouldn't a request to the board to have the EPOD removed have to be a unanimous request from all parties involved? I doubt that you will find many of these homeowners, me included, who would support its removal. Can Mr. Gilbert legally ask to have the EPOD designation removed if he doesn't own all of the land within the established EPOD? Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sue McKenna, and I live at 50 Beacon View Court. And I believe most of my questions have been answered, but I had gone online and pulled up the town zoning, the codes, and the statement that was made regarding 235-43 maps, which was read before. One of the statements there said that these maps shall be known and cited as the official town of Arundecoit EPOD maps. And then if you go to the atlas, which was the paragraph that was stated before regarding the parcel maps were used as base maps for these overlays. A preliminary draft for each woodlot overlay was prepared through interpretation of aerial photographs by the county planning department staff. But what was not read was the last sentence that said the draft maps were then field checked and corrected by members of the town conservation board. So in my mind, those would be official maps because they were checked. And then, one of the questions that I have, and I know we're talking tonight about whether removing the EPOD, but I attended a workshop earlier this year, and I believe Nick Weatherby was there, and I think at that time he was leaving the town. And I think the planning board had asked, at that time, I don't believe they were aware that nothing had been done following their recommendations for the fine and the remediation. And Mr. Weatherby said the town decided not to pursue it. And my question would be, who in the town had the authority to go ahead after you gave the recommendation to do so and decided on their own not to move forward with it? I would, especially with the authority that you have as a planning board, I would certainly want to question that. And then there was an article that was done by Justin Murphy from the DNC last year. And there was one statement at the end of it that I just wanted to, I'm sure Mr. McDonald probably remembers it, but he had his quoted stating, "This is a terrible situation," Board Member Ray McDonald said at the March meeting. "Forgiveness is not happening here. No more. End of story. It's got to be done correctly." Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Kelly Adam. I live at 110 Beacon View Court. I've been extremely frustrated with Mr. Gilbert's actions of do whatever I want, ask forgiveness later, or ask permission. He hasn't done any of this. He's continually violated the town's codes. And to allow this appeal would be very hypocritical, in my opinion, of the town's stand on what has gone on back there. My backyard backs up to Mr. Gilbert, and he has been a terrible neighbor. He has poached a lot of the trees that were, I'm sure, designated as part of an EPOD, large old oaks. He has been cited for this. We have fought him for this. And I'm hoping that the town at this point will make a stand and prove to us citizens who live in this area that we take this seriously and they take this seriously. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Kevin Parks. I live at 1434 Titus Avenue, and I've been here for, 28 years in town. I happen to have a boat, though, on the Genesee River. I rent from Mr. Gilbert at Dock 41 South for the last 30-some-odd years. I am very familiar with those trees. They were mostly all cottonwood. I do call that garbage wood. I own a wood boat, and when you pull varnish, the cottonwood smells it. Comes right out and sticks to it. It's not a good thing. They're really nothing but a weed. As far as that property, and I know I've heard a lot of these people say some things, and they truly seem offended, but most of these people, in fact, all of these people, bought property that backs up to a railroad track, not Mr. Gilbert's property. His property is on the other side of the railroad track. It's still CSX land, right? But it was a railroad track not all that many years ago, as I recall, knowing the trains going by, raising their coal dust. What I see here is the people seem dismayed that 2 properties over from them, they've lost something. What they lost was cottonwoods, which I would consider a weed, an inconvenience at the very least. As far as the EPOD thing, I don't see where he was ever officially notified, and his tax form says woodlot, doesn't say EPOD on it. I happen to see a copy of it, just asking Al one day myself. And that means to me that since nobody told him, and he's owned that property since I believe the late 60s, when it was a garbage dump. Now, Tom Callan, he's still down there renting at dock number 1, and he's got a picture of the trucks dumping garbage right behind where his car was, back when he was first down there, and when Joe Seiler owned the property. As far as what some of these people said, I realize they're inconvenienced. I don't see a problem at all with that not being declared an EPOD. Also, the fact that if it was 6.6 acres and now it's 2.3 and that's not good enough, are they going to put the trees back where that bridge is? And who's liable and responsible for the loss of the trees, and there were hardwood trees, where that bridge is? Furthermore, how about all the oak trees and further hardwood trees, 28 of them that they cut down to put this library in? That didn't seem to bother anybody. But that's my neighborhood. But anyways, that's all I've got to say. But I personally think that he should not only be exonerated, but he's cleaning up the town. I think he's improving things. My thoughts, sir.
Thank you. Next person? Anyone else?
Once we lose this land, it'll be gone forever. My name is Diane Duttinger, and I live at 260 Beacon View. The CXR Railroad donated their land and built an amazing bicycle and personal path that extends for miles and miles to the Seneca Park Zoo. And I think that is part of the EPOD in a way. And if we, and we have natural deer and wildlife there too that we'll lose forever. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next, anyone? Going once? Close the public input portion of this hearing.
May I respond?
You may.
Thank you. A lot of what I've said and a lot of what I'm going to say, and I'll try to be brief, is really questions of legal interpretation. And I don't expect the public to sympathize with it or understand necessarily all of it, but I do want to point out that to the extent there is any ambiguity in the code, that ambiguity is to be construed in favor of the landowner and not in favor of the regulator. I look at tree communities, and it says tree communities are those which are established within 10 to 20 years after cultivation and maintenance. Cultivation and maintenance is in the conjunctive. I think it's conceded by all that this land has never been cultivated for anything. It also calls out, the statute, calls out the types of trees that are to be included in, be protected, and it does not name box elders or cottonwoods or poplars, and there must be a reason for it. Because the town clearly indicated in adopting this code that these were the species that were worthy of protection. And I could cite some Latin phrases as to how you construe language such as this, but basically, when you've got a list of the types of species that you are including, if what is not listed is of a different nature, then it's not included in the definition. So we think construing the code in a way that has to be construed in favor of the landowner, that this does not meet the definition of tree communities because of the types of species and the type of the area and the basal area. And we did, I recognize one of the members of the public pointed out that in the county atlas it says that these maps were field checked by town conservation boards, and believe me, we tried to see if this in fact occurred, and there's no evidence that it ever occurred in the town of Arundequoit. There's not a shred of paperwork in the town that the field work was done by the town of Arundequoit. Again, this is not a criticism, but it is apparently a fact. As far as the 6.6 acres are concerned, and the DOT taking the property or a large majority of the property for the O'Rourke Bridge, it says in the code that this must include all areas in the town of 5 acres or more containing tree communities. This doesn't contain 5 acres or more, and it hasn't contained 5 acres or more for about 14 years. The statute is, the code is silent as to whether it's got to continue to contain 5 acres or more. We did do a good deal of legal research to try to find out if there's any precedent for a situation where there's been an involuntary taking of an overlay environmental district and how that impacts it. There is no case authority on it. So I would say that you take a practical construction of what the code says. It says it's got to be 5 acres or more. It's no longer 5 acres or more. Logic would dictate that it is no longer considered part of the EPOD 3 district, and that is a reading of the statute that would be in keeping with what I consider to be the rules of construction of a statute. So, again, I'm not here to defend the cutting of the trees. This is not the issue in this case. I can understand that some of the homeowners adjacent to this property may be very concerned, but what we're looking for here is a legal determination which the town code empowers the board here to make, and that's what we're asking for. That concludes my presentation, unless there's some questions.
Probably our question. I have a question. It is a good point about the adjoining properties. I mean, what do we, by regards of this application, we're just being asked to remove just the confines of his property
This particular
from the
property.
EPOD? And the
Correct.
EPOD would maintain,
Correct.
even though now it would even be more deficient in acreage?
Correct.
What about, so you'd have like a hole in the middle where the O'Rourke Bridge is part of the EPOD still, and the Gilbert property's not, and then the adjoining property owners that are still?
Correct. Yeah. So unless you were to find, it's not before this board on an appeal, but if the town were to do a remapping process, or those particular owners were to appeal a determination that their property was in the EPOD, those are the ways to change the map. So, to the issue of, that the EPOD shall include areas of 5 acres or more, that is the requirement for the initial establishment of the district boundaries. So the boundaries of the district shall be delineated on the official town map and shall include all areas of 5 acres or more. So at the time that the map was created, the EPOD by this code had to include at least 5 acres. It sounds like everybody's in agreement that it included 6.6 acres. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not that doesn't mean that there can't be changes to the characteristics of the EPOD district throughout the years. There are a lot of instances where it's actually required, if there's going to be development in the EPOD, that an owner come to this board, get an EPOD permit, and they may be able to cut down trees and develop on their site. Just because they've removed trees and developed on that site pursuant to a permit that's been issued doesn't mean that their property is no longer within the EPOD, or that you would take, the half of an acre that they cut down and take it away from the overall area of the EPOD. It's still the working zoning district. It's an overlay district, so just like any other zoning classification, it's not changed just by the actions of the owners or even this board issuing permits. A zoning district and classification can, be changed by the town in remapping. There's a particular remapping, or there's a particular mapping process for the EPODs, and if an applicant disagrees with it, then they appeal to this board, and that's the situation now. But to answer your initial question directly, if this appeal is granted, then this property will no longer be included within the EPOD. There's not an application right now to, dissolve the entire EPOD, so the EPOD will remain and this property would just not be a part of it.
Okay. Jay, questions of the applicant?
No.
Rich?
Just out of curiosity, if I live in one of these houses that's in the EPOD and I want to cut down a cottonwood tree, I have to come to the planning board to either remove the EPOD designation or get approval from the town?
Go ahead. Carrie's more familiar with the actions that require an EPOD permit.
Well,
than I am.
and Bob Kiley may want to chime in here as well, but generally speaking, if somebody is located in a woodlot EPOD or even a steep slope EPOD and they want to remove trees, they'll come to the town. It can be determined whether it falls in the category of being reviewed administratively, and then determine whether or not it needs to come to the planning board for your review. And this board has reviewed EPOD permits for modifications to a site, whether it's a new building or a new retaining wall or floodplain like Bill Gray's just came before you, also included EPOD Newport. So the amount of modification or alteration to the site varies significantly from one parcel to the other, but certain activities are exempt from an EPOD permit.
Right.
So maintenance or shrub maintenance, felling diseased or damaged trees, certain things, there's a list of exempt activities.
If you want to take down a healthy cottonwood tree in your yard and you live in an EPOD, you either have to appeal the designation of an EPOD so you can do it, or you can get permission from the town.
You would get permission from the town, correct?
You could get permission, but you could also choose the other route and say, I want to be out of the EPOD, and here's why, because I don't fit the map.
You could try to prove that you're not properly included.
Yeah, this is
Yeah, I believe, Rich, that would be correct. I think this is the first time, at least that I know of, that this has come before this board, that it would be eliminated from the EPOD.
If I could add in, just in case people are watching on TV, if you're in an EPOD district and you want a tree to come down, it's not a prohibition. You have to come to the planning board if it's a healthy tree and decide that you stay in an EPOD district, and the board decides whether or not it should come down.
Right.
And usually, and our code says an arborist might have to give an input to the application, but it's not a prohibition, it's just, it has to be carefully done, and if it's not wise, you're told no. And if it's okay, you can call many trees out, because sometimes that's helpful for a property. It's not always a negative to take out a tree.
We've
But
done
it has
that
to be reviewed.
several times with, in steep slopes, EPODs. I mean, down by, on Seneca Avenue, there was, there was an instance where someone wanted to add on to their house a little bit, and there was one tree that had to, that came down, and so we've done it several times.
And just to follow up on that, and I know it probably doesn't really apply to what we have to do tonight, but for a person to know that they're in an EPOD, they have to go to look at the town maps to find out. There's no other way for them to know.
So in some cases, on the Monroe County, there's an indication in RPS system, there's an indication that there may be an environmental overlay district. But just as with it's any property owner, it's your burden to know what your zoning is, what zoning district and what overlays might be impacting either your property or even neighboring properties. This happens quite a bit where neighbors assume that the woods behind them are forever wild, and then when bulldozers come in and they're like, wait a minute, what's going on there? I thought those trees were there forever. They find out that that's not the zoning, so it is on the onus of the property owner to know what the zoning districts are that apply to their property.
That's right. The mapping itself is the notice to all the owners in the town as to what designations or properties.
And just as a point of clarification, this particular code related to EPOD has been revised over the course of years since it was first adopted. So in theory, the public would have been aware had they been, this has been before the town board, and they've been subject to some revisions through the years. So it's not as if it was adopted once and never opened or talked about again in a public forum.
And it sounds like there may even be designations on some of the tax bills based on the one
Right.
gentleman's comment that
think,
it said woodlot on the tax bill. That's the woodlot EPOD.
About 8 years ago, it's a problem. Many people really honestly didn't know they were in an EPOD. You're new to the area, you have no idea. So the thought was, let's try to get it on the tax bills, but some people who pay directly through their bank, they don't necessarily get. So it's hard. We just keep trying to get the word out, and it's
If you're on a
improving,
hill
but
and
it's
you
not
have a lot of
perfect.
trees, you better check a
Check the
map
map.
before you do something,
Be good, wise, or a steep slope, yeah.
or you're near the water. Rich, anything else?
No, that's it.
Ray?
No questions.
Bernie?
Mr. Rosenbaum, I have one question. In your discussion, you mentioned that that the maps were not checked. I think you referenced that several times. That no fault of the town, but you couldn't find where they were checked.
We could not discover any documentation, information, notes of any type the town had, or the county for that matter had, that indicated that this particular area that included the applicant's property was field checked to determine whether it would qualify for the definitions of the EPOD as set forth in the town's code. We could not find anything.
I would also point out, though, that there's no evidence or notes indicating that they were not checked.
Well,
Actually,
the
to the
evidence is that
contrary,
it's
the
written into
evidence
the
says
ordinance that it says it was checked.
Yeah, they-
To me, that's.
It was written in the
That was
atlas.
codified and approved, and, that's evidence.
Well, thank you, Peter. That's the point I was going to make, is on page 28. It does state that the draft maps were then field checked and corrected by members of the town.
That is from the town atlas, the user's manual. It's not from the town of Arundecoit code.
Right, that's the county providing an overview that the individual towns that adopted these regulations field-checked their conservation boards. Record keeping from that time, and conservation board is, the records for those proceedings are not tracked the way they might be today. It might be easier now to keep
A
track
record of
of.
that proceeding might be indicated in that guide that was just cited, correct?
Yeah, in the atlas, which I'm looking at, they don't provide that material as support of the statement, but the statement is in there from the county.
So I guess, Mr. Rosenbaum, until the resident mentioned that, I didn't quite understand. I understood your point up until that point. So what's the difference between this field check and a different field check?
There's no evidence that a field check was ever made. There's no evidence of an actual field check having been made. And if the field check had been made, it would have determined this should not have been included in the EPOD because of the types of, the land was never cultivated and maintained. It does not establish, it doesn't have the 10 to 20 years after cultivation requirement. It doesn't meet the species requirement. So if in fact there was field checking, in our view, it could not possibly have been included in the EPOD. And just because it's included in the map does not mean it met all the requirements. That's the only point we're making.
I don't have any more questions.
Mary?
No.
Michael?
No.
I mean, I think our point, our opinion is that it does meet the requirements, that was 6.6 acres. The map was never amended. It contained trees, poplar and other that are parts of the willow variety that are clearly indicated within the ordinance. And your client came in and cut the trees down in an EPOD without permission. And the EPOD's still there. It's this board's, and I believe the town's opinion, that it meets all the standards of an EPOD.
Can I just add one thing, Mr. Chairman? And that is this. And I understand the concept of where you're in an EPOD overlay district and you want to make a change, you come before this board, the board gives permission and imposes conditions or denies the application, but this is a unique situation. The DOT didn't come before this board, it didn't have to. It did what it wanted to do by eminent domain.
Right.
It took this acreage out of the EPOD. That's a unique situation.
It didn't take it out of the EPOD. It altered the land located in the EPOD, which is the substantial.
I don't want to split hairs, but all I'm saying is that.
Well, it's not splitting hairs. It's a different statement, I believe.
It altered the property and reduced it to 2.3 acres, is all we're saying. And that's a unique situation. And it's not addressed by the code. The code is silent on that, and that creates an ambiguity.
Well, I disagree with that. There's the establishment of the EPOD district, and there's nothing that says, just like there's nothing that says with any other zoning district or overlay district, that, if you get a use variance to operate a commercial use in a residential district, that doesn't mean you now have created that as a commercial district. Just because the use or there's been a change in the use or the conditions of the land doesn't change the zoning designation. There has to be a procedure to do that.
We understand.
Not automatic.
We understand that, and we respectfully disagree. And we're only here tonight to make a good record.
Right.
They don't come before
Mr.
us.
Chairman,
Yeah.
can I don't know if we do we need to make a motion and vote on this?
Yes,
All right.
at some point.
Do we need to do seeker?
No.
This is a type 2 action, because I think it's an interpretation of the mapping. I don't think that it's subject to seeker.
Because everything from here on out is just about interpretation, and really it's a question of whether or not we think we should grant the appeal or deny the appeal, correct?
That is the question before the board, is whether or not to grant the appeal of whether or not this property is properly included within the EPOD.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move with respect to,
Just one more point I'd like to make for the board's consideration as to that the treed communities are those which were established within 10 to 20 years after cultivation and maintenance. I think that, the way that I read that is you can qualify as a treed community if you have trees that have been established 10 to 20 years after cultivation and maintenance. It doesn't seem to me in reading this that the intent was treed communities that have been in existence forever in areas that have never been cultivated wouldn't classify, that you can only be part of a woodlot if you're trees that grew after cultivation. I think it's that woodlots include areas where there may at one point have been cultivated or maintained land, but 10 to 20 years later, it's no longer cultivated and maintained.
This EPOD was mapped in the 80s, so there must have been substantial trees at that point in the 80s.
Correct.
It's not just a
Right.
singular property either.
Right. And who knows what trees were there then? I mean, maybe there were other trees that aren't there now. Any rate,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion with respect to PB 1507-1 upon the matter of request by Woods Oviatt Gilman LLP acting as agent for Alfred G. Gilbert, to appeal the determination of the town's planning and zoning department regarding the boundary of a woodlot environmental protection overlay district on premises 1027 Thomas Avenue in RH River Harbor District. I move that we deny the appeal.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Oops, this one. Wait. We're approving a denial. It seems like a negative, but
No, you're
deny
you're
the-
denying an appeal.
we're denying appeal, so we're yay. Yes. Seemed like a double negative, but, or negative positive.
What was the language of the motion?
We're denying the
Denying
appeal.
That's right.
So
You're
it's
denying appeal,
correct.
so you should be all be saying yes. If that's what you'd like to do.
We're proving a negative.
Thank you for your time and your consideration. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I move approval of the minutes from September 28th?
I think we still have items before our board.
Oh, shoot, that's right.
We got one. This, okay, George, and some.
The board actions, do you want me to go ahead with the town board referral?
Yes.
Upon the matter of request by Aben's Farm Market for rezoning application to rezone a parcel of land at 35 Kane Drive, tax ID 077.19-1-5 from R1 Residential to M Manufacturing District.
We didn't get any information on this, did we?
Yeah, we had,
Letter from the applicant.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's.
we had that, a full application.
Should have been the application that went before town board. You would have been in receipt of, I believe.
Was that our workshop, I thought, wasn't it?
You know what? No, it was not a workshop because
Came later.
town board accepted the application at its October meeting on the 15th. And so then they accepted the application for the rezoning, set the public hearing date for next month at town board, and referred it to this board for your referral. So
All right, so we have nothing, the board has not seen anything.
you should have received it via email.
She sent something down email and said that she would send the hard copy, or we'd get the hard copy, but we didn't get it.
The hard copy isn't, I'd be happy to go, I'm so sorry. I'd be happy to go grab it if it's not here. It's on the desk. It wasn't left as part of the packet.
Did you get it? None of us here have gotten it.
I don't see it here.
Did you see it?
No, there was only a letter that came from the applicant, Mary.
I know, that's what I got online.
I thought there was an app, there was a letter and a map, I
This
thought,
is the-
in whatever email
yeah.
I got.
Here we are. Sorry, they're hiding in the back of the file. I get to play Vanna again.
Peter's seeing things.
What?
You're seeing things, you've been here too long.
I believe what I saw was an email. There was a map attached.
Ah,
All right, so do you want to just discuss this a little bit?
I certainly can give you, the application was received and accepted by town board. This is to zone R1 to M Manufacturing, which would then bring this parcel into conformance with the properties surrounding it. The other properties around it were rezoned, I believe, back in 2006 or 2009. I might be inverting my year, but everything around it is M Manufacturing. And so town board was open to receiving the application and is looking for this board's review and referral on the matter. The property is bounded by the bus depot, the bus garage, or the transportation garage for the school district and for students. So it's very in keeping with the area.
So this is the gap in the tooth, in essence, and this property was a holdout when the rezoning occurred.
Correct, and now
The family, or they lived in their past, and the land was for sale, and Amon's bought it, as I understand it.
I believe that's.
And they now want to have that zoned contiguously M1. It's completely surrounded by M1.
Correct. and bordered by Seabreeze Drive across the way, across the street, so.
There's nothing there.
If the board doesn't feel comfortable reviewing it tonight, we can defer it till the next meeting, but
Looks pretty straightforward. Mr.
It
to me,
is,
anyway,
yeah,
Mr.
it's,
Chairman.
it seems pretty straightforward.
if you look at the map, you can just see the isolation of the property.
Mr. Chairman, let me just, can I just move that with respect to the town board referral, we have a positive referral?
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Sorry about that. You didn't hear me say anything.
Now we have one meeting minutes. Correct? To review and approve?
But it's still open. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that you mentioned something was still open on this?
That's it.
No, I didn't mention it.
No, it was another item for board action.
Well, there was, the
Oh, I'm
item
sorry.
for board action was the one we just reviewed.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Minutes approved.
Adjournment, Mr. Chairman?
Motion to adjourn, someone?
Second. Oh,
Ray
just did it.
I move.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Aye, aye, aye.
Meeting adjourned.